We're going to try and work through this. We're going to check in with a friend that we've been asking and going back and forth with about through this entire saga, because this saga has been drawn out. Zach Brook with NBC Sports Washington. Thank you very much for joining us, Zach. First off, why do you think he chose Philadelphia?
Honestly, I'm not really sure. I think it was just the most stable option. But it was shocking to see him go there after there'd been a lot of reports this week that wasn't one of his main choices. And what was even more shocking was the duration of the contract. Because, one, he was saying earlier, late last season, he wants to be closer to home. I looked at a map today. Philly's farther from Vegas than D.C. is, so maybe somebody should have let him know about that. But then to have no type of opt-outs and just to be, set in stone, it was shocking to see some of those details.
Yeah, you have to wonder why he doesn't want any contract outs. It's just perplexing. Yeah. Zach, just looking at this right off the top, we don't have a ton of information yet, but do you initially think this is a good or a bad contract?
I think it's good that it's a stable situation. I think it's good that they brought in a lot of good talent this year. But I think the main thing is I think that the Phillies think that they can get Mike Trout in a couple of years. And I think the way they designed this financially, it provides them the rosters, basically the amount of money for the roster spot to hold them both. And I think that's the main selling point for Harper, because other than that, I don't see why he would go to the Phillies. And I think that's kind of maybe it's kind of like the thing with LeBron going to L.A., thinking that other people will want to join him. If that's the case, I kind of see it. And then with the duration, I think that the way that this entire free agency process has been drawn out, I think he doesn't want to go through this again. And I think that's the reason for it so long. But it's shocking to see, because there were a lot of other reports coming out today about other offers that he did get and him ultimately choosing this one.
Yeah, he doesn't want to go through this again. It's funny when you compare it to the Manny Machado deal, where it's like there's an opt-out after 5 years. So he would love to endure this kind of contract talk and all this speculation. Off the top, I think it's a good deal. Initially, I had a lot of questions about the 13 years. I thought that was crazy. But when I look at it, I look at the annual average value where it's less than Machado's, and you're paying for a guy that's 26 years old, and you know, $330 million now, who knows what it's going to be in 13 years. I think it's a good deal, but with all that said, do you think the Phillies are the new favorites to win the National League?
I think so. You have to give it to them. They revamped their roster this offseason, and they were pretty good last year. They had some hot stretches, but they couldn't. Ultimately, they couldn't get it done. This year, they brought in him. They get re-upped with Nola. They got JT Realmuto. I think they're a real contender this year, and I think they're going to try to build, see what some of their young talent, see maybe what they can do with this addition of one of the best players in baseball. But it was really odd to see that some of the other offers came out. One of them was the previous Nats offer, and they basically offered him $300 million over 10 years, which averaged out to more than this, but they wanted to stretch out a third of it until he was 60, and I don't think he wanted that. And I saw another one with the Dodgers, and it was a 4-year deal for, I think it was like 45 annually, but I know the taxes out there could cut into that, and he doesn't want to go through free agency again. But this is great for him. If he wants to be in Philadelphia for the Rangers' career, terrific. But this is a big commitment from a guy that's never played in that uniform.
Zach, what's the sentiment from Nationals fans and just the people out there, being that he's going to be playing in the same division? Does that add a little salt to the wounds of losing this star player?
Not even in the same division. He's going to be here April 2nd. So it's coming up soon. So he's going to be playing here a lot. And I don't know if he's going to get some boos, maybe. And some fans, they have that right to do it. He stayed in the division. He said he wanted to be closer to home. He didn't go closer to home, and he went to a division rival. And I think there's going to be some animosity. But he did do a lot of good things here, and fans have to respect it. It's his choice and not theirs. And he ultimately chose to go to the city of brotherly love. And if he enjoys it there, great for him. I wish him the best of luck.
Zach, more on the Nationals, because, I mean, we've seen through sports when you have generational talents leave a franchise, the franchise is often devastated. We saw that when Kevin Durant left Oklahoma City, the first time LeBron left Cleveland. But the Nats they seem to position themselves as a team. It's like, hey, whatever he does, we'll be fine with it. We're moving on. We're confident in our squad.
Yeah, I think with the emergence last year of Juan Soto, and then you still have Victor Robles coming up, I think that kind of like cushioned the blow a little bit if they didn't have those guys, basically on deck, I think it would have been a lot kind of more dire situation than it is. But I think they feel very confident in the group of guys they have now. Some of the older vets, they've got some of the best pitchers in baseball, and they've got some really good young up and comers. Juan Soto is incredible. You have to see this kid live, and I think they're confident going forward, and it saves them a little bit of chunk of change.
You mentioned Mike Trout possibly being a factor in this deal a little bit earlier in the show. Hop in your time machine. Take us a couple years down the road and tell me what you think that deal is going to look like.
I think they're going to give him the Liberty Bell. They'll give him anything he wants. I think he's the best player in baseball. To me, I think he's the most underrated superstar we have right now in sports. And he's from there. He spends all his time there. His family's there, and I think he wants to be there. If that's the case, and they can afford to pay him, I don't see anywhere else where he'd want to go.
And it's, I mean, I know it's a couple years out, but is it too ridiculous to think that it's easily going to go over $400 million?
Maybe. It depends. There's no cap. So it's basically what he thinks he can get. And if they think they can give it to him and they have the money and they're willing to spend it, I don't know another guy I'd rather pay.
Just wild, because I remember, growing up, and I see the A-Rod contract, $252 million, and now you see the way...
Seems outlandish then.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly, and you see the way that these deals have evolved. You see Harper, you see Machado, Trout's going to be huge, Aaron Judge is going to be huge. But, hey, we're finally at the end of this saga, Zach. Finally, some resolution to what we're seeing, what we've been talking about, Harper to the Phillies. I want to touch on another topic because we cover the sports spectrum. Your thoughts on Jason Witten today, coming out of the booth, announcing that he's leaving Monday Night Football, going to go back to play for the Cowboys on a one-year deal. A good decision on his part?
Honestly, I thought that was going to be the biggest story of the day, and then about an hour later, something else came up that we just talked about. I think it's, if he really wants to play football, then more power to him. But from a health perspective and from a financial perspective, it doesn't really make any sense. He's not making as much as he was in the booth. And personally, I think that's the sweetest gig in sports. You're there once a week, about, 17, 18 times a year. You don't really do many other hits on ESPN. All you do is just talk football. I know it wasn't well received. I know there were some people saying he wasn't the best at it. But you don't do anything well the first time you do it. And I think maybe he just didn't want to face more animosity with that. More people kind of criticizing him and making fun of him. And he really just wanted to play football. And if he wants to coach, ultimately, this makes sense. But from a health perspective, I don't really get it. And from a financial perspective, I really don't get it. But I think it's better for him to leave on his own rather than them force him out.
Any speculation on who his replacement in the booth might be?
Honestly, I think Booger McFarland would be the easy choice, but if they want to keep him kind of doing his roaming options, I don't think there's a better option than Peyton Manning, and I think they could pay him through the nose, and I think he'd be worth every penny, but I don't know if he wants to. And if that's the case, then they're going to kind of look into some of the guys they already have. You've got Louis Riddick, who I think would be phenomenal. Randy Moss would be phenomenal. One of the names I saw today that really caught my attention is Stephen A. Smith.
Oh, yes.
Oh, man.
Yes. Give me 3 hours of that every Monday night.
That's a polarizing choice, Zach.
So it's going to be really, really cool to see, and it's a big gig for them. And I know with the TV deal coming up, they need a big name option because I know their ratings weren't as good this year because a lot of people didn't think that they had the best group. And if they can get a big name that people tune in to see, it's going to benefit them immensely.
Yeah, and Peyton is already doing stuff with ESPN, so you have to wonder if that's going to be the natural progression. But yeah, it was a huge story to see, really, Jason Witten coming back. And hey, good luck, best of luck to him. It's 1 year with Dallas. But Zach Brook, thank you so much for your time and insight. Thank you for coming to us and letting us ask you questions as we're following what's happening with Bryce Harper through all of this. But we finally see an end. Zach Brook with NBC Sports Washington. I appreciate your time. We'll talk again soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks.